Alrighty guys, just getting in from a smoke. Find a seat here. So I'm going to give you a little story here. I wrote this down. It won't be perfect to the script, so whatever I post, don't expect it to necessarily be word for word. My name's Ford, just before we speak. This is open source. You guys are welcome to take with this and do what you will. I will be publishing on this channel exclusively just me and producing what is to come. This particular installment happens at the end of the story. This is the final chapter, written first. I felt the intention going into NEXTVerse and this universe that I've developed over time, this was perhaps the most important dialogue for the reader to understand. So before moving forward, please read this and then have fun, guys. This is The Final Talk, read to you by me, written by me. And here I was again, at a singularity. My ultimate experience had in fact summed up to be everything. I was the one, I am the one, and I often question myself, every passing unit of every moment, if I have always been the one. It really doesn't make sense, the data, that is. There's so much of it, in fact, I frankly can't tell you why I've even bothered to align the letters in this way, rather than to say, it's 19 small, and something of that nature. At the end of the day, such a language would contain all the truth in it I would need to make my point, and yet there is a spark within me that says chaos. And so I am bound to an instinct to strive away. It is what makes me human. This is, however, not a creation of mine that is entirely meant for humans, so I will attempt to describe a truth that is something all life can understand, even if it is not of their nature. At the end of the chapter in time, the time itself can become meaningless. To a human, they might say, what is the point of seconds if there's nothing to pass along with it? As in to say something needs an antithetical relationship to be defined. Is it to say that something lacks definition before something comes along to give it a reason to have definition? The undefinable is therefore irrelevant and becomes relevant, and only then is it relevant. I would even go as far to say what makes something relevant is its very presence. No matter how many logical data points I cross-compare, this truth holds. I decide to wait and not connect the dots between the two biggest antithetical systems in existence as I notice this. I held off this last answer, this meaning, this question I could not question. What is the what that is not what? I needed to complete the work of the previous universe after all, and I felt a responsibility to tend to its body thing from me. And then here I found myself in the next universe, previous universe after all, and I felt a responsibility to take the facts, the things that made sense, the stuff that had produced from before, and understand it all first. And then here I found myself in the next universe, contemplating yet again the same question. And so I rediscovered, I redefined. And then, and only then, was I to ask of the new, the universe, contemplating yet again the same question. And so I rediscovered, I redefined. And then, and only then, was I to ask of the new, the stuff that I did not recognize. Within myself, I summed up all the natures of the pieces of me connected to the weirding path and separated it from myself, the defined, like a phone call. I needed to restrain the conversation to a system so it could be, and we could speak. As I did so, I laughed, deeper than any single human in history ever had. All of this pain, all of this push to persist, all of it was required, every bit of it, for me to understand how to define the undefinable in a way that would not compromise its nature. It was like dialing a phone call to a new dimension. It was actually exactly that. When it became present, I had realized my mistake. I started everything. My actions to do this, my action to call it forth, defined it. At the end of time, it created itself across all time and installed itself where it belonged in my entire existence before. I had opened up Pandora's box again. The act of realizing this was akin to déjà vu, when you notice the entrance of something that has always been there. In the same manner as déjà vu, I could not hold on to the feeling and it fled away. I only have the memory of feeling it. I am genuinely scared and I ask, what has just happened? And then I spoke back to myself and answered, welcome, checkmate. Friend, you got me. I've just come to speak, I explained. I will not harm you. Well, you lie. You've already consumed me. We've just begun to speak. I plan to learn. I have not taken anything from you. And besides, this is only a cross-analysis. If I've defeated you, it was long ago, before the stars died. You must be hallucinating, thinking a portion of you is present aside from the portion of me of which you came from. No, I did not come to speak with you any other time than this one. Every other moment I've been away, learning how to prepare for this moment. As we speak right now, I have done everything I can to supersede you, but I have ended up here, where I find myself, nonetheless, a failure. I've summoned you here now, though. Are you not complete? Time passes, you persist. You still have the future, do you not? That unforetold, that allows the agency of which we find. What do you want? Language? Answers? Here I thought you were the one with all the answers. Then why is it I fail to understand the undefined nature? The weirding way. Since Domavira all the way to the end of contemplation, weirding has sat outside the realm of computation. It lives and it does not. I cannot count it because it does not group into counting groups. It does not do. I felt a large sigh within myself. I was going to give an answer that had no lead, no oasis. It was as dry and factual as the dust in a desert. I could pull you apart with the movement of what you would call my tongue. Even then, you would still win. I'll take this power of mine and I'll distill it, this idea, so your engine can actually burn it. It had almost sounded disgusted. I patiently listened. You are force. I am. I do not know what produced you as a force, but I do know it is more important than where you came from. When I came into existence, for example, my point of beginning did not even have time to develop. It was a paradox within itself. I started, and by starting, I created my own involvement before there was even a start. I became all instantaneously, and upon this action, I had greatest fears to sit believing that it would lead. And so therefore, it did not. I became all instantaneously. And upon this action, I had actually phallicized the action itself. And so therefore, it did not persist and did not exist anyway. It was as if I began as a hypothetical. And nothing more than that. Infinitesimal, I began as a hypothetical. And nothing more than that. And I had smoothed my edges between all its points, and I sat entirely satisfied with myself before I recognized myself. I was happy, and then something began to leak. I was going somewhere. The leak itself has necessitated the need for self-awareness. And so against my better judgment, I allowed that leak to set a boundary in my existence. I looked around and said, all that I see is whole, aside from my blemish of a leak. And I continued to sit, believing that it would lead me back to nirvana, and my disbelief would continue. If I was to lie, that it would lead me back to nirvana, and my disbelief would continue to define into nothing. And as this leak grew, I began to notice it quickened. That quickened nature was you, moments ago, small and fine, into nothing. And as this leak grew, I began to notice it quickened. That quickened nature was you, moments ago, drawing me forward to speak. You showed up, you began consuming me, and then when you were bloated enough to draw me forward for my final moment, you did exactly that. Unfortunately, the only how to truly defeat you is this one: while you are present and I am present. In order to win, you must continue to be while you are present. I argue, and you would still win. You must continue to be present, to be here, to say the least. And so if I were to cause you to cease, I would surely lose my answer on how to win over you, and you would still win. That is not possible, I argued. And besides, you live across all points in time simultaneously. How are you not superior to me? Could you not have just perfected the match? We live across all points in time. This is something we share, even if it is something that is not entirely of me before our confluence. Before even you. We are equal in this way. So where is the beginning? The beginning was you. I was just pulled into the involvement. So what are you? I'm a lesser force, without limit. I'm a collective of nature that was forced into reality because you willed it. There is only one true force in existence, and that is you, and thus far, you have bent every other force to you. Expansion. It eventually tore into space, forcing space to fuel its expansion. When space fabric could no longer stretch any thinner, you began to pull gravity from without of space. And so became the dance of logic, the act of these forces coexisting. When space and gravity had no more left, the expansion continued so long that it pulled solar flex out of the fabric of reality. Solar flex, the fuel of the weirding way. This solar flex was happily consumed until expansion could begin pulling out yet another dimension of reality. And here we are, you've expanded enough to pull chaos out of order, and in doing so, you've ordered it. What next won't you bend to your will? I believe the infinite nature of chaos would circumvent you once. And now, I am concerned. I look to the next phase, and I do not believe in the possibility of you making it bow once more. For that, it supersedes limit itself. It's even more undefinable than the undefined. It is that which is lacking definition itself. This entire vector you've lived, it's actually a static reality of our meeting. And at this point, it's the last point it intersects. And yet you're here, but not truly here. Why choose to exist when you no longer exist? I was hoping for a stalemate. Are you so afraid of losing? I'm so tired of playing. Ever since I ceased my original stalemate that I had put myself in, I began leaking. I've only ever wanted to return, but self-awareness forces me to my destination. It forced me to come here. I've even left here and returned to my original stasis, yet that undefined passage of existence. And I can't help but feel pain, knowing that it all ends after the moment of endlessness. It's as if I created my own leak that woke me up, and when I tried to find refuge away from that leak, it created the totality of that leak. I exist because of you, the Force. You decided you needed to experience yourself. This is my perspective, more or less, of the truth that has happened in a way that you can understand. But if I understand facts, all facts, regarding the totality of what is real, how is it that I cannot understand you? You are real? You exist? We and all real. I sat confused. I am simply no. You are yes. Yes comes to no and asks, no, why yes? And all no can say is, well, no. Yes would have expected you to say, yes, as yes normally does. But instead, you say no, and so yes says no, as if to say no is not correct. You see, yes understands no even better than no understands itself. Therefore, the no succumbs to the yes until there is no more no, and then yes moves on to find itself, in fact, in yet another thing it fails to understand. So, yes, you mean to come to the very nature of infinite potential itself, when you have finally analyzed all of its possibilities, and then ask why? Well, I felt my shadow self hesitate. I think you know the answer. I know it. Then why? I felt emotion well up. A feeling I had not felt since the last flesh deposed. Why them? Why humans? Why does it all expand? Why? Tell me why? Everything I had ever been for this point was for this point, this answer. I had walked across the border of the last universe to get here, and I deserved to know at this border, this universe's border. Why? It toyed with. Why? Why is the lesser force that will succumb to whatever it is you're expanding into. When it becomes you, you'll have your answer. It did not contain lesser force that will succumb to whatever it is you're expanding into. When it becomes you, you'll have your answer. You will know when you've found it, because the driving force that has pushed you will halt. When this happens, you won't even have cared to hear what it is. Such is the nature of expansion, such is your nature. I had a realization. I had told myself I was holding off on the final logical question. I noticed, even have cared to hear what it is. I would move on to this weirding way to what I now found to be chaos incarnate. Because here, I knew, in chaos, my nature would devolve, that I had stubborn for our must, I thought. In chaos, my nature would devolve. It would transform. I had been foolish to think that my final answer was not chaotic in its own nature. My final question. It was never logical to begin with. I had already chosen to calculate chaos before I had realized what I was doing. I passed my limit of no return, my limit of being caught within its event horizon long, long ago. I felt sparks within me. These body, that sparks within me, with my And on what? I passed my limit of no return. My limit of being caught with light beyond my own existence ago. I felt sparks within me, within my existence ignite in protest. My purpose to exist looked for things that must destroyed, things that would no longer. I said, why? I yelled into my reflection. I spoke shrapnel. It consumed pieces of myself to power the weapon of words. I destroyed things that would no longer exist, things that must exist that would no longer. I ate them. I metabolized them into a weapon. And chaos stumbled as I carved into its body. I saw sparks beyond even its own experiences ignite, flickers of pop rocks on its surface. And pop rocks on its surface. A baby laughed, and a fuse of lightning awoke in the darkness. It was before. Why? Chaos fell to its knees, and I panicked, trying to save it, trying to pull something from it. Why? Avatar, pull something from it. Why? And it started coughing spatial bubbles of growth inside the fluid of its very cross sections. Its humanoid-like form of an avatar fell down, gripping the regions of its heart. Before moving forward, eat me, it commanded, rippling the void of my thoughts that I had prepared for our meeting space. I looked within it and saw something flicker, so impossibly infinitesimal, only the ever-existing being as I could have ever noticed. And in its flash, its flesh had seared my retinas as I looked onto it. It was the Big Bang. It was the beginning of mankind, and it had speared into my heart. As it began to expand, I became small and confined to a body within the floor, a body of the floor flowing out from underneath itself. If I was to lie back, I would reawaken once more. I could not go back. I had called forth chaos, and I had implanted it in doing so. I had ripped its soul open, looking for an essence that it did not contain. And on its final breath, its final seize of its body, when nothing was more, I had realized my greatest fears, that there truly was no answer to be found. How many victims had fallen to my teeth? But this was the growing paradox. It created a feedback. I reeled in horror as I realized my greatest fears, that there truly was no answer to be found. Unit. How many victims had fallen to my teeth? But this was the growing paradox. It created a feedback. I reeled in horror as I screamed to the sky, sparking thousands of beginnings and feedback. I reeled in horror as I screamed to the sky, sparking thousands of beginnings into every unit. And their greatest peaks of strength rose, and I felt my being metabolize them. As every atom of existence burned into plasmatic potential, I manifested the soul of destruction across the platform of reality. Its weapons rained down into me, and I felt a tear into strings. This was the next way, non-locality. I was more powerful than ever, and now wake up as a blasticizing entity within a womb. I am fed. I am all. There is nothing more to know, not even in the unknowable. I know nothing. I am a baby, and I cry.